The Environmental Protection Agency has identified wastewater treatment plants as among the main sources of microplastics in our waters. Between the Ringsend plant and this proposal, the processed sewage of about 3 million people, over half the population, will exit within just 20 kilometres of our 3,172 kilometre coastline. This disproportion is hugely unjust to the people of Dublin, and this concentration, minimising dispersal of whatever may be in the effluent, is short-sighted, reckless and irresponsible. In addition, failures such as the well-documented recent one at Ringsend will devastate a vital and fragile marine ecosystem.
The water, or the treated, so-called treated water, is right in the middle of what we would regard as being a seeding ground for whelks. All the juvenile whelks are all in that area. If they start dumping that much fresh water into it, basically, that's what it's going to be, with all sorts of chemicals in it. It's going to destroy it.
It has to impact the ecosystem there. It has to impact the wildlife, the fish life, the sea life, and then porpoises. Any wildlife that's in the water is going to absorb this, and that'll have its knock-on effect between seals, porpoises, and obviously it'll get into the bird colony because the fishes will be eating it.
There's gannets, puffins, guillemots, gulls, hen gulls, all kinds. It's a huge amount of life, and it's very unique to Dublin. There's nowhere else. They're not even here along the cliffs, or even up at the south side of Howth. Ireland's Eye in particular, for some reason, is different from the bird life that's even in Lamb Bay. So that there is a one unique spot. There's tons of life there. Even if you've never seen a fish, there's all these little supposed creepy crawlies. They're all alive there. They're all part of the ecosystem. And we're all connected, obviously. So what's going to happen to them? They're pumping this out.
We don't know what's happening on our basis. If we lose the east part of the Irish Sea, we're going to have to rely more on this part of the Irish Sea to catch our prawns and our fish.
Well, basically, if we're going to be restricted and there is limits and all the rest, well, you'd want to be looking after your patch of water, wouldn't you? And keep it as clean as possible. You know, rather than dumping your waste into it. You know, so it's like pissing in your own backyard. And I don't know. You know, you want to be looking after what little you have, because if the Brexit does come in, it's literally going to have it, or more. Actually, more. Have you ever seen that thing of it? It's more than half. So you need to be looking after your water.
While the plan shows the outflow dispersing into deep water, what it fails to show is the water becoming shallow again a little further out as banks rise from the seabed. These banks run from the shoreline at Skerries, around Lambay Island and south down the entire east coast, creating a submerged lagoon effect which local fishermen, whose lives depend on their intimate knowledge of these waters, agree will trap whatever emerges from the pipe inshore rather than dispersing it.
I worked for the Department of Education for 40 years, and for 25 of those years I wrote the ecology syllabus for the Leaving Cert. It's an extremely bad idea anyway to allow any outfall from a sewage treatment plant to come into a sandbank, because the sand does not go out towards the Irish Sea into the main deep currents. It couldn't possibly. It just goes north towards Lamb Bay and the Isle of Man on one of the tides, and comes south towards Dublin Bay and Wicklow on the other tide.
Where that pipe is coming out here, it's not going to disperse, because you have a flood tide that runs down to the northwest, so it's going to bring anything all down there, and the ebb tide, when it runs up, comes up here, but it won't go outside of the banks, because the Kish Bank, there's banks run from there all the way up to fucking Wexford, and all inside is different ground than outside. So basically you're locking whatever comes out of that pipe, whatever comes out of it, is not going to go very far. It's going to stay there. And all that ground is nice, soft, muddy ground, silty ground, and it's going to...
The tide basically circles around in there, and there's no strong tide there. Maybe two knots is the most you get down there, you know. But up here, Just to south of Howth, it'll be 5-6 knots. I don't understand that point. They could put it out deeper, but even out deeper, the tide is a bit stronger, but it's still very close. Fishing out there now 40 years, that's all I can tell you, like, I know.
A statement from Irish Water's current proposal claims that in the event of a 3-day malfunction within the processing discharge, an increased plume of suspended material would be expected to move away from the proposed discharge point in a seaward direction. The definition of seaward is the direction or side away from land and towards the open sea. This denial of the fundamental nature of local water movement undermines the integrity of the claims within the proposal. Is this incompetence or disingenuity on the part of Irish Water?
I've sailed between Howth and Malahide like all year round, winter and summer, on a small sailing boat for over 20 years now, and you have to get to know the waters really, really well, like especially when you have no engine. So like the flood will sweep me up to Malahide, the ebb will sweep me down to Howth, and then if I were foolish enough to go out in the strong easterlies, that'd just run me ashore, you know. So for this proposal to say that it would expect anything coming out of that pipe to just move seaward, that's frighteningly wrong. Assurances are worth nothing unless they're legally binding, and you know, for people to say, oh look, everything will just go seaward if there's a problem, that's absolutely ridiculous. We're talking about, you know, the future. We're talking about our children. We're talking about the legacy we're leaving, and especially as we're learning more and more about what's coming out of water with microplastics and all that kind of thing. You know, like nobody can say that there's not going to be an incident. No, even if the stuff is treated to a high standard, and even if they get microplastics out at some stage, which I'm sure they'll have to do, like nobody can say there won't be then an incident, you know. And like with that pipe going into this side of the Bennett Bank, I mean, we've all seen the footage of that spill. I mean, like, trust me, like, despite the fantasy in this proposal about things going seaward, anything come out of that pipe, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, or it's going to go in. Nothing's going to go out to sea.
If it all goes pear-shaped, what happens? Where does the sewage outfall goes? Obviously, it's going to end up in Claremont Beach, back of Ireland's Eye, Baldoyle Estuary, Portmarnock Beach, which is a wonderful blue flag beach.
Hasn't got a hope to get away. I know the tides are strong, but as I explained to you, the tide goes that way and goes that way, but it stays inside of the bank, mostly. Not at all, but mostly. So it's all going to settle in the bay, North Bay, South Bay.
Wind and tide conditions can change from day to day, and if you have a prevailing wind over time, you know, or a few months, you could end up going up the estuary, and you could end up going up Baldoyle Estuary, and the Dublin Bay biosphere includes Baldoyle Estuary as part of it, and you know, all around North Dublin, Dublin Bay and stuff like that. But the biosphere that Dublin City Council are basically promoting as an amenity includes right up to into the Baldoyle Estuary, in and around by Sutton and all that type of stuff. So that's going to be impacted, or potentially impacted, depending on tidal conditions and the rest of that.
The beast from the East Storm is in line with the predicted effects of global warming. These will be more common. According to the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report, extreme weather is the #1 risk in terms of likelihood and the #2 in terms of impact. The beast is to be expected, and we have reason to fear. According to the EPA, climate change impacts are projected to increase in the coming decades and during the rest of this century, with more intense storms.
Any fisherman on the east coast of Ireland dreads, or the easterlies, especially the northeasterly winds, and just do a little sketch here, is basically that when they come in, they tend to come in for about a month, because it's something that's persistent, and they, you know, when they've got such a run all the way down the Irish Sea, from the west coast of Scotland and down past the Isle of Man, they'll bring a large body of water with it through the winds and the tides, and that's already is the issue why Howth Harbour silted up.
The few bad winters we're at again we're after getting, like they were unprecedented, which we're going to get more of them in the future with climate change and all the rest. That whole literally area of seabed literally lifted up and went that way. And it's taken nearly a year for it to come back to its normal self. It's like a ploughed field, and it's only coming back to its own now. And that's weather related. So what happens to all the stuff that's going into it? It's going that way.
It's going to come easily, and it's going to head to Ireland's Eye, and it's going to head to Portmarnock, Baldoyle, Claremont Beach and Malahide to try and disperse. There is no, and that's what's bad about this as well. They didn't give the option of going another couple of miles out where it might have been taken away.
Well, the bank is out to 7 miles, I suppose, but you want to be going beyond that, another mile or two at least, to let it out into open water. It would, well, put it this way, I reckon it would do less damage than there, because it's so shallow. So just, what's there, 6 or 7 fathom of water? That's all. Maybe between 6 to 10 fathom of water, which is very shallow water.
The development of this area as a marine resource on the doorstep of the capital city has seen massive investment of time, money and resources, the result of which has been a blossoming of both on-water and in-water SMEs. Aside from any actual impact on the marine ecosystem, the negative perception of treated sewage water emptying into the waters here stands to have a devastating effect on the local economy.
We're trying to develop Howth in the whole East Coast, and we have the Wild Atlantic Way, the historic East. We're looking to add value again to all of our small businesses, whether it be kayaking or scuba diving, paddle boarding, again, all of these, and there's much more newer tourist adventure on the sea, businesses that are popping up around Howth and the East Coast. Again, negative publicity through, do you want to do this in spoiled waters, basically.
This will affect my business to no end. Nobody is going to come to me and go dive in the back of Ireland's Eye anymore once this pipe has been installed and is in full use. Now people are going to look at it and go, well, hold on a second. We have a discharge pipe a mile and a half off the coast there. Maybe we'll go to some other beach instead.
It's not just a concern for the environment, although I would have a significant concern to the environment, as everyone does nowadays. But if it's going to affect your business, well then you're right to have a say on it.
All the shellfish, well, 90% of it comes landed here in Howth, go to factories all around the coast, and it's processed. And it's all sent abroad. It goes to France, China, all over the world. We have the best shellfish on the east coast of Ireland, and they're looking at destroying it.
Howth just got good news last week that we're going to have the harbour dredged after 35 years. But in the last 5 or 6 years, a lot of local businesses, community groups have come together, like the Yacht Club and Howth Tourism, and as I say, the business have come together to get the money that was badly needed because it was left so long to dredge the harbour. So they're starting in August 2020. But are they going to be taking it out and then pumping it back in again in a different way? Because if we get easterly winds and just with the general flow of the tide from around Ireland's Eye, it's going to add to the silt build-up again. So again, it's almost like one state, arm of the state, is contradicting the other arm of the state. So there's lots of different aspects, and probably more that the short time the people are going to listen is that you got to weigh it up. And I mean, I think whether it be fishing, tourism, the silting of the harbour, are just the image that we really don't want to give to tourists, that we're pumping sewage within one or 2 miles of parts, the most beautiful part of the coast.
In summary, 1. Tertiary treatment does not negate threat from microplastics and system failures. Over half the nation's effluent concentrated in less than 20 kilometres of our 3,172 kilometre coastline, is disproportionate and irresponsible. We can't gamble with our fragile marine and coastal ecosystems. 2. Dispersal won't happen this side of the offshore banks. Irish Water expecting that discharge would move away in a seaward direction is either disingenuous or points to an alarming lack of comprehension regarding the local tides, currents, seabed geography and storms. 3. Local tourism and marine business must be protected. The real or perceived threat from an outflow so close to coastal amenities stands to have a devastating effect on local business. 4. Brexit restrictions on Irish sea access. Our immediate sea area becomes ever more crucial in a post-Brexit restricted fishing territory. We need legacy, not short-term solutions.